Hi, this is Nicolette Lambert with Birth Multiverse, and this is our next lecture on second stage and third stage labor. So, second stage labor is the stage of labor that lasts from the onset of pushing until the baby is born. Now, many women do find this to be a painful stage, although it has its advantages over transition because you're active and you're actually doing something. And it can be easier to start to feel like the baby is coming because you're feeling progress happening, because you're pushing, and you can even start to feel the baby start to descend, that it's coming, it's getting close. Now, if the mother is not on pain medication, she will be able to feel the urge to push. So again, when you see on TV and in the movies where you have a nurse yelling something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, push. If the mother is not on pain medication, she's not going to need that. She will feel the urge to push, and no one will have to tell her that it's time to push. Now, a note on pain, though, is that some women who have given birth naturally do report that pushing isn't necessarily painful, but that it's a lot of pressure. And there are some women who do report having had what they call a pain-free birth. Not that it wasn't work, not that it wasn't hard, but that they wouldn't characterize it as being painful. Now, there are some different things that can happen in this stage of labor. For most women, the bag of waters will break during this stage, during second stage when you're pushing. And when that happens, you just keep pushing. That's happened to me every single time with my babies. My bag of waters is broken during second stage labor while I've been pushing. Some women report having an orgasm in the final pushes as they're giving birth to the baby. So the baby's coming over and coming out. Sometimes it can hit the clitoris and even feel really good. So you can always hope for that. Many women who labor without pain medication but are put on their backs or another position that is not comfortable for them will feel an intense, painful, and burning sensation as the baby is crowning. They often call this the ring of fire, and this is often when tearing happens. Because if you are in a position that isn't comfortable for you, when you're pushing and the baby starts crowning, your perineum may start to tear. However, most moms who are in labor in whatever position they want to be, whatever's comfortable for them, don't experience this sort of tearing and don't have that kind of pain. And I will attest to this, that when I've been able to labor in the position that I wanted, that I didn't feel that intense tearing and burning sensation when my babies came out. Now, when the baby appears, there are a couple of ways that your baby can make a debut. Sometimes the baby will crown, and most of the time this will happen, they'll crown, meaning the head will show, and then a couple of pushes, and the whole body will be born. And so the head will come out, and then it'll take a couple pushes, and the rest of the baby will come out. Other times the baby will just shoot out all at once, and this actually happened with my second. He just came, bam, like that. Sometimes, though, the bag of waters does not break at all during labor. It's fairly rare, but it does happen. I know a woman that this happened to. And this is called, in a kind of as a layman's term, being born in the caul. Caul, C-A-U-L, is another term for the bag of waters. There are a lot of old superstitions surrounding this idea that if your baby is born in the caul, that they have supernatural powers. They're more intuitive or something. Don't know. Never happened to me, but there are some that can happen sometimes. And if it does happen, I can't guarantee any mystical powers, but generally there's no threat to the baby if your baby is born inside the caul. The doctor or the midwife will just peel the caul away. The baby is generally fine. It's usually no problem. It's just kind of something different that can happen sometimes. Crying. So the idea that a newborn will cry loudly at birth and that that's a sign of health is so deeply ingrained in our culture that it's on the APGAR score. If your baby has a high APGAR score, they're supposed to cry really loud when they're born. But many babies who are born in a low stress setting, just don't exhibit that behavior. They don't cry when they're born, or they might, or after they come out, they might kind of whimper a little bit as they're starting to get on the breast and everything. But they can be very alert. They're good and pink. They're breathing fine, but they don't cry. And I've seen that actually with all of my babies and my other friends who have birthed in natural birth type of settings, especially with a midwife in a birthing center or at home, have experienced that where their baby is very, very healthy and alert but isn't crying. So idiosyncratic gentle birth advocate Frederic Laboyer was one of the first to suggest that crying at birth isn't natural in the sense that it's just a developmental thing, and that it could be due to excessive stress during the delivery. Now, the medical community has largely discredited Laboyer's theories, but the experience of many parents and midwives, myself included, support the idea that crying doesn't necessarily mean your baby is healthy, and that you can still have a healthy birth and the baby not necessarily being crying. So the baby should be put to the breast right away after he or she is born, so they can start nursing. It's very important because babies are so alert in that first hour of life. I mean, they've come out of the womb and bam, everything is there. They're very alert, and that's a good time to start getting them used to the idea of nursing and establishing that pattern of latching and suckling. They probably won't take a lot at first, but it establishes that pattern. It gets them practicing it more or less. And so and don't be disappointed if your baby doesn't latch and suckle right away. I mean, they just got out, and it's not just going to go like bam. They'll kind of root around at the breast, and they'll maybe do a little licking, and they generally get it, but they're not going to latch on 2 minutes after birth and take a full 15-minute feeding. So if that doesn't happen, it's okay. It's mostly the contact with the breast that helps bonding and gets the baby kind of practicing that and getting the idea. It kind of turns on those natural instincts for suckling and latching and helps them practice that. And it also stimulates contractions to expel the placenta, stage 3, and those contractions that the breastfeeding stimulates also help prevent postpartum hemorrhage, which is a very good thing because that's a major complication of birth. And so really quickly, let's talk about stage 3. So stage 3 of labor, it goes from the baby's birth to the delivery of the placenta. Generally, this needs to happen within 30 minutes in the United States. In Britain, I believe it's an hour after birth of the baby, because a retained placenta greatly increases the chance of postpartum hemorrhage. Now, retained placenta is when the placenta stays attached to the womb and doesn't come out after the baby. It's supposed to come out. If it doesn't, it can cause infections and hemorrhage. So that's why the uterus is going to begin contracting and get ready to expel the placenta. And again, the baby nursing, latching at the breast, and suckling will help stimulate those contractions to make that go faster. So just like pushing the baby out, you'll probably need to push out your placenta, and it can help to get into a pushing position to do that. Just like whatever position you were in for delivering your baby often helps with delivering the placenta and making that go a little easier.